Okay, y'all, so as promised, I told you I would do the odd problems. So the very first problem that's on your review is a -7 plus x equals a -9. Now, if you want to solve for x, what I told you to do during class is to put a box around the variable that you're solving for, and then try to figure out how to either make the addition beside it become a 0 or to make the multiplication beside it become a 1. So right here, what I'm trying to do is make the -7 become a 0. So in order for it to become 0, I have to add 7 on both sides. And once I add 7 on both sides, and I'm saying sides, but you know we draw a line through the equal sign. So what should happen then is that x just gets brought down. -7 plus 7 is just 0, and I'm left with x equals a -2. So your very first answer on your review should be x equals a -2. Pause it if you need to. Okay, picking up where I left off at, if we do the same thing on both sides, these are just one-step equations, and once again, I'm solving for the variable. So m is what I'm solving for, so that's what I'll put a box around. In order to make the 4 become a 0, because I need it to disappear, and I have 4 plus m, I'm going to subtract 4. And what you do on the left side, you got to do to the other side. That is the inverse of adding. So now what I'm left with on the left-hand side is m, and on the right-hand side, a 2. So m equals 2. Take a second, pause, write it down. Equation that you have here is considered a two-step equation because it will require 2 steps to solve for k. So we got -2 equals k minus 1. I went ahead and put a box around k minus 1. Now in this case I need the 3 to become a 1. So because k minus 1 is being divided by 3, the inverse opposite operation is going to be to multiply. And if I multiply the right side by 3, I have to multiply the left side by 3. So what I'm left with, and I'm saying sides, but once again, there's my line. Make sure we do the same thing. So 3 times a -2, that's just going to give us a -6 equals, and over here, 3 divided by 3. That's the same thing as 3 divided by 3, which we know is 1. So for that reason alone, the 3's become a 1. They're gone, because anything times 1 is just that anything. All right, and I'm left with k minus 1. And so at this point, still solving for k. I already multiplied by 3, first step. Next step, if I need to get k by itself, I want this 1 to become a 0. So if I need 1 to become a 0, right now I have a -1. I'm going to put a +1 in there. +1 on both sides. So now what I have is a -5 equals k. And that's it. You're finished. Pause if you need to write it down. I have another two-step equation, which is number 7. So, drawing my line, what I do on one side, I got to do to the other. I want to leave the -3x right where it is. So, I need to make the 1 become a 0. I got a +1, -1, -1 on the left, -1 on the right. So, what that leaves me with, +1, -1, that's a 0, it's gone. I'm left with a -3x equals a -3. -2 minus 1 more. That's going 1 more to the left, so I end up at a -3. All right. Very last step, I got a -3x equals a -3. This can be reworded as -3 times x. That's the operation going on between 3 and x that we don't really speak about. So I divide both sides by -3. And what happens is -3 divided by -3, that's a 1. -3 divided by -3, that's a 1. So on the left-hand side, I'm left with x. And on the right-hand side, I'm left with 1. So x equals 1. And just like that, you're done. Now, if I'm talking too fast, make sure you hit rewind, rewatch it, or you can put on closed caption, whichever will help you. But you can pause the camera right now if you need to write that down. We have now is a literal equation. So this is the next section of your review. It says solve each equation for the indicated variable. And on this one, we are solving for A. So we got G equals BAC. G equals BAC can really be rewritten as G equals B times A times C. And since the things on the right-hand side, B, A, and C, are being multiplied by each other, in order to get rid of the extra, because right now I'm solving for A, the opposite of multiplying is to divide. So if I divide, I make the B and the C on the right become a 1. So B and C on the right is what I'm dividing by, so I got to do the same thing on the left, B and C. So what happens is B divided by B, that's a 1. C divided by C is a 1. So on the right-hand side, I'm just left with A. And on the left-hand side, I have G divided by B times C, or just written as G divided by B over C. All right? Pause it if you need to. But that's your final answer. It's a literal equation. Your answer is going to have some variables in it, literally. Next problem you have, this is number 11. It says XC equals RD. So once again, just like the one before that, we can rewrite that as X times C equals R times D. And since we are solving for X, that's our term there, I'm going to put a box around X. Now that I know that I'm multiplying X times C, then to get X by itself and make C become a 1, because I need that to disappear, I'm going to divide by C on the left and also C on the right. So what just happened by dividing by C, those two are gone. C divided by C is 1. So X equals RD divided by C. And that is your final answer. It's a literal equation. Your answer is going to have variables, literally. Pause if you need to. What you have here, this one, the direction says to draw a graph for each inequality. So the given inequality that we have is X is less than -7. Now, since there is no line at the bottom, our inequality, our dot or our point will have an open circle. Okay? So my open circle is going to start at a -6. And because my less than sign is pointed to the left, I'm going to shade, to the left. All right? And that's your inequality. That's done. So number 15 is -6m is less than or equal to a 96. So hopefully, if you were thinking, we have a solid line underneath our inequality. So that means that our dot is going to be a closed circle. Solid line, solid circle. All right, so the next step is to just divide. So I'm going to set the problem off to the side. So a -6m less than or equal to 96. Okay, so what we have to do in order to get m by itself, I need this -6 to become a 1. So in order to make the -6 become a 1, I need to divide both sides by -6, because that's understood to be -6 times m. So with that being said, I just divided by a negative number. What happens to the sign, y'all? We circle it as a reminder that it has to flip to the other side. So what happens is I'll have m is going to be now greater than or equal to. And a -6 divided into 96, 6 goes into 9 at least one time. 6 away from 9 is 3, so 36. So my final, wait, is that positive? I divided. Okay. Positive divided by negative should be a -16. Okay, so that means when I go to graph this on my line, I'm going to start at a -16, and I was bubbling it in. And then my inequality tells me it's greater, so we going to the right this time. Paper looking like Christmas. All right, we good? Hopefully. That's it. Pause if you need to. On this one, I decided to not draw the inequality sign just so I could have that out the way. I can always do a graph over here to the side with the inequality. So on this one, there's actually 2 steps that need to be done before we start graphing. The first thing, like the last problem, we have a solid line underneath our inequality. So that means that we're going to have a solid, and I said point, but it's the included point in our graph. So Once again, you can draw your imaginary line if you want to, but I have m minus 8. So what that means is that I need to add 8 on both sides. Excuse me, I had to go take care of something. Now, what happens here with the negative 8 and a plus 8, hopefully you thought it was a 0, or you know it's a 0. So I'm left with m on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, 12 and 8 adds together gives us 20. Still have that same greater than or equal to sign. Now the issue becomes, m is on the right. M belongs on the left. When I switch m and 20, I must also switch my sign. So this would be my solution for my inequality. So I can do 20, 21, 19 to kind of make it match the paper. But remember, we do have a solid circle. So it's going to start at 20. And it's going to include all the values going to the right. Okay, so that will be my graph of my inequality there. All right. Good luck on your test. Happy studying.